I'm Dr. Connie. I'm your host of Mind Your Health podcast. I share my unique perspective both as a practitioner and a patient battling autoimmune condition for over 25 years because I had to figure things out on my own, and my education in my practical approach as a patient allows me to truly integrate it so that you can be whole and the burden of sick care is no longer your own burden to carry. And this is what we help you with in this podcast. So I have a lot to share today in this podcast, but I want to start out by saying, I'm having a lot more or increasing number of patients that are coming to me that have mysterious symptoms that's been coming on for a very long time. And they've been going to the doctors to get tested and do all the things, but many of them don't know exactly what's causing the symptoms. So they're left wondering what to do. And that's when they find me and they come to me. Here's what I want to say. When the doctors don't have any answers for you, it's going to be your responsibility to figure things out on your own, because if there are no options, if they have nothing to provide you, you're just waiting for that sentence, right? You're just waiting for the disease or the diagnoses. And I believe it's so important for you to prevent the diagnoses and get your body back in check. And I just want to tell you my story, where my story wasn't as easy. There was no point of return or there was no reversal in what I had to do. But the doctors still shrugged their shoulders and told me they're out of options. Science didn't answer any of the questions. And I'm just a unicorn and they really don't know what to do for me anymore. That was the scariest little statement I've ever heard in my life. Because regardless of my resistance to modern medicine or conventional medicine, I do believe that it does good for acute situations. I do believe research, scientific research, and all the data that we collect with these treatments that they have is essential. And when you're given high chances of survival, low risk, and all the things, and yet you end up not the statistic, but outside, and you're an outlier, and the doctors don't know exactly what happened, that's a problem. So let me just give you a little background story. You guys know I'm Dr. Connie, and about 3 years ago, after getting COVID vaccine, something happened, and, call it what you will. Some people say, or some doctors want to believe that it was my lupus, but something triggered something, and my life has never been the same, because from the day of my vaccination to about 6 months later, I had to walk away from my business. I was so sick that I couldn't be vertical, and my kidney lab values were out of whack, out of charts. And so I had to be admitted in an emergency situation. And I was told I needed dialysis and that we were going to try some chemotherapeutic agents to try to salvage my kidneys. But what used to work in the past, like magic, it didn't work this time. And my kidneys were shot completely. Had to go on dialysis and learn to live in that state. And at first I was doing the things and going to this dialysis center by my nephrologist, who's been my nephrologist for over 12 years. And he's seen me through births of my 2 boys and treated me successfully every time I had, the 4 times that I had kidney nephrotic syndrome because of lupus. And so he was very familiar with my body, is why I went to go see him for a third opinion. And he's the one who admitted me. And I was really disappointed because of his negligence. I had the worst infection that almost took my life. That's number 1. Number 2, fast forward to about 5 months ago, I get this amazing call that says they have a kidney for me. And keep in mind, because of a couple of transfusions that I had, I'm the only O in my family. I have a twin sister. We're fraternal. Every one of my siblings are all A. My parents are A or A type in their blood. I'm the only O in the family. And so they can't be a donor to me. And so I had to look and get listed. And that's what we did. And when I did, I got this fateful call last October, a day before my birthday. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be great, because donor was very hard to find for me because I have what's called a high PRA score. I have a lot of antibodies against certain things that they check for. So it's up at 99%, probably 100% today, but 99%, which meant that they put me at the highest on the list as an emergency. So I'm being tested against everybody nationally to get the kidney, and that's how I found the kidney so fast. And luckily, I thought this was God's moment, and I readily went and got the transplant, and I thought I was going to be as healthy as ever. The first week went by when I went for a follow-up, my labs were normal, and I was so elated, and I was so happy. But that was when things started to turn. I started to have swelling in my abdomen. I already had swelling from the surgery, but I had kind of gotten this swelling. And if you understand kidney transplants, post-transplant, you want to be looking for sudden weight gain. You want the weight gain to be going down, because when the kidneys are working, it's able to urinate all the toxins out. But if kidney gets lazy or you're experiencing a rejection, that means that kidney's not able to filter the blood. And so not as much urine being produced, and they're watching for that like frantically. And keep in mind, I'm on a high dose of immunosuppressants that have to be monitored, and the dosage has to be very carefully checked by the team, the pharmacist. And we check the levels of certain medications every single week during this time. Well, they told me, even though I'm tiny, I'm a high metabolizer, that they kept having to give me more and more and more to get the therapeutic dose in my blood. And the pharmacist said, like, the dose that you're taking of this immunosuppressant is like that of a 300-pounder. And so she said, you're going to get some symptoms, but right now we have to see the kidneys get out of this window of this acute phase of transplant. So then I did it. I had a little tremor, severe weakness, just a lot of fatigue, a lot of digestive discomfort. And so that went on for about a couple of weeks. And then the numbers kept getting worse and worse and worse. So they admitted me for a kidney biopsy just before Thanksgiving, as well as very aggressive immunosuppressive IV treatment over the course of 5 days. The numbers slightly shifted, but it didn't quite come down to the level they expected, despite so much immunosuppressants given, to a point where it was dangerous for them to give me anymore. And by this time, I was so weak and so sick that it was just not going to be possible. And so I was discharged with a note that they would probably have to look for a different medication if the numbers don't improve, but it's not FDA approved for transplants, that I'm a very special case. They looked at all my lab values, my antibodies. They looked back at the genetic profile of the donor as well as my DNA profile. And they said there is no rhyme or reason. They consulted Vanderbilt, threw all the science at it. There was no answers. Well, fast forward to just before Christmas, they wanted to do another biopsy. We did another biopsy and found that it was still primary cellular rejection of the kidneys, nothing to do with my lupus, because that was very important differentiating factor in choosing the medication. So they kept me going until end of January. I finally said, I don't know about you, but I'm not feeling very well, because I have to tell you, it felt like I was going through, or I had the flu all this time, like it was going on month 3, and every day towards the end of the day, I would spike up a fever, 102, 103, and I would be living on Tylenol every single day to keep the pain under check. And my blood pressure was out of whack, and I wasn't dialyzing, so I just felt like I needed some help. So I admitted myself, told my transplant team in Tennessee, I'm here in Alpharetta, Georgia. I admitted myself after consulting a nephrologist here, and we decided we need to start treatment again because this is just not working. Well, we did, and I felt so much better after. And ever since end of January, I've been on treatment again. I've been feeling a lot better, but I had to go for a follow-up to get relisted as a transplant because I'm one of those proactive people. And today I feel so good, and I'm just so thankful, having been as sick as I was. I'm just so thankful I'm able to do a lot more. But at the same time, when I went for the visit back for the reevaluation, the doctor pretty much said that there isn't a specific type of antibody testing that would guarantee me to say that this next transplant would be a success. So they can't, in good faith, put me back on the list until they get this test approved by my insurance carrier, as well as to find the actual test, because it's not a standard test that they do. And so again, it's not one of those tests that are readily available. And in fact, the doctor said he doesn't even know if it's available. So I'm left in limbo, kind of figuring things out. And all this time, I just want to say that there is so much insensitivity in terms of what I was dealing with. There was such a detachment from my caretakers, not caretakers, but care team, medical professionals. And I think it's part of the job because you can't be emotionally attached. And I understand that. But as I'm going through health crisis on my own, there was very little, I guess, concern. And I didn't feel supported as much as I felt like I needed. And by support, I mean, I needed more answers because I had a lot of questions. A lot of questions about this field of what's going on with this rejection and how come I'm feeling this way? How come I'm outside of the statistics? What went wrong, right? Because these answers weren't readily answered to me as it happened. There was a lot of silence from them to me, and I had to just sit here just in the dark to try to figure it out. And being in this situation kind of feels like being at the edge of a cliff, and you know your world as you know it, and you thought you had a map of your world, but all of a sudden that map is burned, and then they're telling you you're on your own, and so you look down and it's just a big forest. And so you have options. You can either A, give up and see what happens, or you just decide you're going to navigate yourself out of this. And I have 2 teenage boys. No, not teenage. I have 2 young men that I raise still. And I knew that I wanted to be here for them. And so I had no other option. And frankly, I feel that I am healthy as ever before. And I can keep things going the way, or at least maintain my health in this way, because I do a lot of extra things. But what I'm disappointed about was while I was getting so much toxic medications with the side effects, they gave me a lot more medications to mitigate the side effects, which was causing more side effects. They never gave me anything to mitigate the risk, to protect my health in any shape or form. They talked nothing about that. They didn't tell me to exercise. They didn't tell me to do something different. They just told me listen to my body and rest as much as I can. But that's all I could do, is to be bedridden. And I knew, being a physical therapist for over 30 years, that that was going to kill me. And so I just decided to do things despite how I felt. Now, so let me go back. So after I started dialysis end of January, they said in order for me to get back on the list, they would have to remove my transplanted kidney because I kept getting or spiking fevers every single day. And it was just getting out of hand. There were so many inflammatory markers, and the way they described it to me was, you're so tired right now, Connie, because your body is fighting something. It's at war. And it's putting all your energy there, so much so that it's not able to sustain much of anything for you. And frankly, it was really true because I could barely move. I could barely think. I could barely exist, right? All I did was sleep during that time. And so we decided to remove the kidney in March, middle of March. And ever since then, it's been 4 weeks post-op. I believe it's going to be 5 weeks this Wednesday. And I went back to yoga 2 weeks post-op. And I've been back as good as new. Even before the transplant, I feel healthier today. I feel so much more energized, and I feel happier, and I feel like I'm home. I know who I am, and I know there are many people living their lives with both kidneys intact. And I can honestly tell you, I'd much rather be me than anybody else with their 2 kidneys because of what I've been through. And I'm quite proud of the person I've become. Because 3 years ago when I had 2 kidneys too, I wasn't very happy. I always found a reason to be unhappy. I always found a reason to worry. And so I was constantly living in anxiety. I was constantly feeling unworthy. So I was doing, like busy taking care of everybody else while denying myself the wellness and the health and the attention and the rest and the grace that I deserved. And so today I do so much more. I've had to cut some ties, set some clear boundaries around my relationships with the closest people around me, but I'm so much happier and I feel so confident and so empowered. I feel like I'm in full control over my health so that when I do go see my nephrologist or the transplant team, no matter what they say, I now put them in a compartment of what they provide me is very clear. It's a very focused, segmented way to deal with them for a transplant and thereafter to take care of it. Health and moving forward, mitigating the risks, getting myself in recovery, doing everything that I can to help myself and minding my mind and living every day, doing the things that I need to be doing and really rechecking and not repeating the same mistakes and falling into that same cycle of misery that was going to create my pain and symptoms is no longer an issue for me because I'm able to do all of that. And that's why I decided to share this story with you, because no matter if it's just a simple skin rash you may be dealing with, or maybe it's just a simple digestive issue, maybe it's just chronic fatigue, but the doctors don't have any answers, or maybe you have cancer or been just diagnosed with it, or you just have a chronic illness that you've been diagnosed with. It doesn't really matter. I just want you to know when the doctors have limits, you have to do better and you have to be responsible for your own health to figure things out, to keep searching for answers, to keep searching for better options and holistic options and alternative options that you can deploy to keep yourself going, especially if you want to live. And no matter where you are in your health spectrum, no matter what you've been told, I can tell you that that's not true. You can always do better and you can always switch your story in what you tell yourself, because that's the most important thing. They didn't expect me to be this productive. They didn't expect me to go back and continue to be an entrepreneur at this full capacity. The moment I could do it, I've been doing it because I can. And I am so grateful for this opportunity. I now really consider this opportunity a gift. And it's a privilege for me to be able to do the thing that I love with gumption and passion and conviction. And I just want to share that with you guys to say, no matter where you are, no matter how little or how big your health crisis is, there's a solution for you. And that solution usually isn't where you think it is. It isn't going to come from the doctors or the experts or the influencers or anything out there. It's going to come from within. And as long as you have that resolve, you can really go forward and make a big difference and heal yourself in this way. It's all about shifting your mindset. And that's why my podcast is Mind Your Health. I hope this has been helpful. If you have a story to tell or share with me about your struggles with whatever it is that you've been having, or if you resonated with this, please comment below. I'd love to hear from you, and we'd read every one of your messages, and we'd love it if you'd leave us a review. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys all next week. Thank you for listening to the Mind Your Health podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, we would so much love it and appreciate it if you share it with someone who could benefit as well as to subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else where podcasts are found. And leave us a review. We would be so grateful, and it helps us to reach more people just like you, so you can become more empowered to enjoy longevity and health. You can follow me on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Dr. Connie Chung. And of course, you can subscribe to this podcast for a new episode every single week. Thank you again.